Welcome to Collective SOULversations. I'm Jodi Jones, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this amazing journey exploring spirituality, healing, and personal growth. With over 15 years of experience as a psychic medium and energy healer, I've made it my mission to help people connect with their true selves, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. In every episode, I chat with incredible guests who bring their own unique stories and insights to the table. We dive into different tools and practices that can help support you on your path of self discovery. So, whether you're just starting out or you've been in this journey for a while, Collective SOULversations is all about creating a friendly and welcoming space for us to explore the mysteries of the soul together. So, grab your favorite cup of tea, get comfy, and let's dive into this enlightening adventure together. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Collective SOULversations. I am your host, Jodi Jones, and this is where we dive into the heart of the spiritual truth, the messiness of awakening, and the magic of walking between the worlds. So, I'm super excited for today's guest. He's someone whose work has deeply impacted thousands and whose presence carries the weight of ancestral wisdom and the light of higher truth. Our guest is Shawn Leonard today, and he is a proud Micmac spirit talker, psychic medium, and the star of the hit APTN show Spirit Talker. For over 25 years, he's been a bridge between the physical and the spiritual worlds, helping people find healing, clarity, and peace through connection with their loved ones on the other side. But what makes Shawn's work even more powerful is how grounded it is in truth, integrity, and cultural reverence. He's the author of the book Spirit Talker, the creator of the Wisdom of the Elders Oracle deck with Hay House, and the founder of the Spirit Talker Tribe, a global online community where he teaches others how to awaken and trust their own spirit connection to spirit. So today, we're going beyond the usual questions and we're going to talk about the real spiritual path, the moments of doubt, the encounters with darkness, the sacredness of discernment, and how to stay anchored in the light when you're called to do the deep work in the spirit realms. And this is going to be a conversation that will feed your soul and one that calls you to remember who you really are. So, welcome, Shawn. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Jodi. Thank you for inviting me to be a guest on your podcast, and thank you all the listeners out there that are tuning in to kind of hear this wisdom and knowledge so that it can help and inspire your life. So thank you too.
Awesome. And I feel like you were such a great teacher. Like you're very grounded and being a medium myself, I know that this is such a calling and it's not for the faint of heart. So, I admire all of the work that you do and the light that you shine for us. Now, I always want to ask this question because I really feel like, those of us that answer the calling, that have these gifts that we come on to help and share, we are from a different cloth. We're just not your average bear. So take our listeners back to kind of, the young Shawn, how things started to happen for you, where your gifts came in, if and take us back in time and let us to know how it all began.
Right. Many people that have watched my podcast have probably seen the story, like, or heard the story several times, but I'll kind of sum it up to some degree. But, I think that we're all connected. I feel like we're born connected. And I think as we become more earthbound, let's say, with the egotistical mind of where we are and what we're here to kind of accomplish, then we kind of forget who we are, where we come from, our connection. And I think some people, through their life, I think all people actually are meant to awaken at some point, whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime in the future, whether it's in this world or another world as well. But I feel like we're all meant to kind of awaken to our true identity of who we are as spirit first, having a human experience. And for me, predominantly, I think, growing up, I would have thought, I'm just like every other kid out in the world. And maybe there's a lot of similar experiences that I've had to other children. But um, I was a little different, I guess. I mean, you could say I was always spiritual growing up. I never Even though my mom, very devout Catholic, but grandma, even though she was Mi'kmaq from Newfoundland, very devout Catholic as well. But, and I was kind of like forced to go to church against my will. And I had really no choice in the whole matter. What mom said is what I did. I had to
Right,
do,
right,
or you got
right.
in trouble.
Yeah.
But in relation to like, faith and such, and even though my grandma was Mi'kmaq, she lost her culture too. She
Mhm.
lost who she was as an Indigenous person and didn't have a lot of knowledge in regards to ceremony or many things. But she did remember a lot about picking medicine and treating ailments, let's say with different herbal medicines. And people would have thought it was superstitious in some way, but really it was like part of our culture of who we are. It wasn't really
Mhm.
superstitious at all. It was just using herbal medicine. People would say, well, that was kind of like witchcraft or Wicca or something like that. But it's really just, pretty much natural herbal plant medicine stuff that she would do. And sometimes there'd be a little bit of a ceremony when she would do it. And I remember that when I was young.
Right.
And she'd always say to me, Shawn, you're Mi'kmaq, right? And I'm like, I didn't know what that meant because
Right.
where my grandmom lived at that time, because she married a fisherman and moved to this little tiny community of St. Bernard's, Newfoundland, and had 16 children, and she was the only
Wow.
Indigenous person there.
Wow.
So, and I don't think she really walked around identifying as somebody who was Indigenous or
Right, right,
right, and actually was kind of frowned upon, I think, in some degree,
right,
but
right.
she kind of blended in with everyone and nobody really said anything. And she would help people, giving birth, etc., and medicines. And but for me, growing up with that and being around her and seeing, some of the ways that she would approach, spirituality, etc., other than just religion, kind of
Mhm.
helped me to broaden my understanding of the spirit world a little bit, even though
Right.
my mom was, like, again, devout Catholic. So growing up, I would have been one of the children that, there was something inside me that really inspired me to kind of explore spirit. And I had different experiences like visitations from my great grandparents. My father passed away when I was 15 years old, but even before he passed away, we had a, a library, but it wasn't really a library. We called it a bookmobile. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yes, yes. I used to have it
Right.
in my in elementary school and
Right,
yeah.
because we didn't have a library where I grew up
Right,
in
right.
Elmsdale, Nova Scotia, and it was not
Yes.
on the reservation. It wasn't,
Right,
although I went to school in Milford, Nova Scotia, which is kind of half Mi'kmaq, half Caucasian people or other cultures of people. So I kind of fit somewhere in between because
right,
my father was Métis from Alberta,
right,
and he had some of his culture, but very little.
right.
And but anyway, I would then go to this bookmobile that would visit our hill in Elmsdale, Nova Scotia, like once a month.
Mhm.
And one of the things I would go out there and search for would be books on ghosts, books on paranormal,
Oh.
books on apparitions of Mary. I'd be like
Right,
like a little kind of a niche kid, like looking for things that, people do.
right,
Bend spoons with your mind,
right, right.
I was just very intrigued by how, psychic ability, psychic stuff, and I wanted to learn more. There was something inside me that said I wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first books I ever bought, or not bought, I got at the bookmobile,
Mhm.
was called Life After Life.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was by Dr. Raymond Moody.
Right, yes.
And the cool thing is because it's kind of come full circle, because I did read that book. That was the first book I read.
Right.
And there was another book I read at the same time. It was called The Apparitions of Mary at Medjugorje, to the children there. And I was just like amazed by these things, right? And
Right,
so
right.
I actually, this August, I'm going to New York, Rhinebeck, New York, at the Mega Center Institute, and I'm going to be doing an opening teaching for Dr. Raymond Moody, which I think
Oh my
is so cool,
goodness.
is so amazing. Yes. And I hear my dog upstairs bark. I don't know if you hear him, but hopefully it's
No, no, I can't hear him. That's
good because
okay.
he's loud. He's a little Jack Russell, and he's just
Oh,
bark,
yes.
bark, bark, bark.
Yes. Yes.
Anyhow, I read
That's
all
so
these
interesting
books.
how that came full circle for you though, right?
It
Like
was.
how
It
that
is funny how
I
things like that happen, right?
it is, yeah.
But I think really there's pivotal moments that shift us all, right? Even though I had friends like Mi'kmaq buddies that would come, and me and my brother would walk up the hill, and I had dreams of like people being buried up on the hill, Indigenous
Mhm.
people buried, like there'd be mounds. And I also had and I used to talk to the wind. It was kind of
Mm.
as a kid, I would like we'd go up on the hill and I would say, speak out loud. I would start having my own little words that I'd speak to the wind, and the wind would blow. And
Wow.
I think maybe all kind of kids kind of play with stuff like that, but
Right, right. Well,
it
do they though? I don't know if all kids kind of play with it, but definitely kids like you and I play with it.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then I remember scaring my other Mi'kmaq friends because they were like, "Oh my God, yeah, this is too weird." Like your
Right, right. You're
wind would blow
spooking
when
us
I'd say
out.
wind blow, and it would just start to pick up and blow really
Right,
hard.
right, right, right.
And but I mean, there was the one key moment in my life that really shifted me was, I guess, my father passing away when I was 15, and he passed very suddenly, tragically, out on the driveway of a massive heart attack, and it was a whole story around that, and it's in my book, Spirit Talker, if you're interested in knowing the whole story. But anyway, it was a year after that he passed that I had this kind of profound visitation for him. And I was like sleeping downstairs in my mom's rec room. And as I slept in the rec room, the reason why, I mean, I was a kid, 16
Hmm.
years old at this time, because my
Right.
dad passed on October 17th, 1987. I would sleep downstairs because I could sneak out at night. I could sneak out
Right.
and go spend
Were
time
you
with.
the oldest? Were you the
I was
oldest?
the oldest, yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I would sleep downstairs on my mom's like rec room couch and
Right.
go out the window, sneak
Easy
back.
access. Yeah.
Nobody would know I was gone, right? So,
Right. Right.
because I was grieving in my own way,
Right.
after losing somebody, I went out to hang out with my friends and sometimes smoke a little bit of weed, just
Right. Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
something that I did back as a kid. I don't do it
Yeah.
anymore, but back in the day, it was kind of something that I did to kind of help myself
Right.
cope in different ways.
Right.
And I wasn't chronic or had an excessive problem anyway. It was just something that I did to kind of help self-medicate, I guess.
Hmm.
But one night I went out and I went to visit some friends. And unfortunately, they were busy, so I had to come back. And I came back at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like this. Well, it was about 2:30. I slept on my couch downstairs, and like Operation Escape the House was like success.
Right.
So I woke up around 3, maybe 3:30 in the morning, and I got up off the couch, in a kind of in a weird way, because I got up out off the couch, not in my body.
Oh,
I was like astral traveling, and that was
right.
something else I used to do as a kid, and I
Really?
could almost do it at will. Growing up, I remember having moments where I would go to sleep and I could literally get up and go play in the neighborhood while I was sleeping, minus, running out the basement window. And
Right. Right.
it
Right.
would be like floating and flying around the whole neighborhood for like an hour or two here and there. And
Right. Right.
I'd always end up back in my body.
Yes.
And as I got older, I wasn't able to fly anymore. I wasn't able to like, I had to kind of walk where I wanted to be. And that kind of got
Mhm.
tiring. And
Right. Right.
what happens is, we become more earthbound.
Hmm.
We start to lose that connection of memory of who we are as spirit. And
Right.
I remember in one of my dreams at a very young age thinking, how can I fly again? Because I'm not flying. So I'd
Right.
run down the hill, right? And because I lived on a hill,
Yeah.
and I'd run down the hill and flapping my arms, hoping that I'd like fly like a bird.
Right.
And
Right.
I'd actually get up a little bit and then
Right. Right.
but
Yeah.
this is a dream, mind you, right? But
Right. Right.
it's where my spirit and my physical reality were kind of like messing with each other, and I stopped being able to do that.
Right.
Again, I found myself outside of my body and standing up, and something that I noticed in the room was this enormous ball, like the size of a big baseball, and it just grew and grew, but it was this pure white light.
Right.
And this pure white light, and I thought, okay, my God, what's going on? I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
Grew
Right.
larger and larger to about the size of a person. And it was the purest, whitest light I've ever seen.
Wow.
Then out of the light walks my father.
Oh my
Now, my
goodness.
father wearing a long white robe,
Right.
which is not something I would have ever expected my dad literally to be caught dead wearing. But
Right. Right.
he walked out of this light, and he knew I was angry immediately because he said, Shawn, you need to calm down, but I've come here to give you a few messages.
Wow.
And I did. I calmed down immediately and I became fixated on the light from which was behind him.
Yeah.
And he says, you need to tell your mom I'm okay. You need to tell your brother that I'm okay. He says, can you promise me you'll remember to tell them this? I said, I will. I'll
Right.
promise them.
Right.
And even though he was talking to me, again, fixated on the light.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I tried to walk around my father to go into the light. And he said, no, no. I kind of got in my way. And he goes, you're not coming in here.
Right.
gonna go check it out for a few minutes. I'll be right back, right?
Right.
And I knew I was lying because I knew if I could get in there, there's no way you're getting me out.
Yeah, you could fly on the other side. Yeah.
Right, because when I saw this light, I knew in my heart at that moment that that was where I came from. I
Right,
knew
right. It was
I was
home.
connected to it. I knew it was home. I knew
Yeah.
I couldn't see anything in it except the light itself, but I
Right.
felt this unconditional, warming, loving light that just felt I belonged to it,
Yeah, yeah.
and I wanted to return to it.
Right.
And my dad said, "No, you can't." He says, "And this is the other message I have for you." He says, "Long before you or I were born, we've had this plan that I would leave your life when you were 15 years old on October 16th, 1987, and that I would then come back and show you this light from which we all exist, we come from, and that we will return to one day."
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, I'm thinking with my father, like, yeah, this is stupid. Like, why would we have a stupid plan? He goes, because one day you're going to be helping people remember who they are. You're going to be helping people understand where we come from and making a connection to the people in this light. And I thought
Hmm.
it was gibberish. I thought this is
Because you were
ridiculous.
16.
I'm 16, right? I think about girls and guitars at that time in my
Right,
life.
right,
Like, that's
right.
pretty much all I got in my mind is
Right,
girls and
right.
guitars.
Right.
And he says, no, you don't know this, but it will all unfold in time.
Wow.
So I tried to walk past again because I'm thinking he's talking silliness.
Right,
And
right.
who would make such a stupid plan like to
Right.
die to show somebody this, and why
Yeah.
why can't I just go home? And
Yeah.
then he goes, you can't go home because and he showed me what it would look like for my mom if I would leave.
Oh wow.
And he showed me what it would look like for my brother if I were to leave. And for a
Right.
brief moment, I got to see and feel all the pain, suffering that my mom would go through. I
Wow.
got to
So
feel all the pain
powerful.
and suffering that my brother would go through. And he was all heavy, especially for my mom. She was already grieving for a year, and she would
Right.
grieve for another 7 years after this, like fully hard.
Right. Wow.
She would start to bounce out of this a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, she'll be okay in 7 years. And he's
Oh,
like, no, I'm not getting it. That's not her purpose, is to be here to
right.
suffer through this.
Right.
Her
Right.
purpose is different, and she has different plan. And
Right.
she's going to meet someone else. And he was telling me all these things. And I'm like, okay. And I still would have went, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
If he
for
would have
sure.
like let me go, there's again, you would have had to chase to catch me to bring me back.
Right. The free
Because
spirit in you was like, yeah,
because I
let's
knew no matter how much my mom suffered, that no, even if it cost her life, let's just say ultimately she would end up in suicide or she would
right.
lose her life, that she would still come back with
She'd
us.
right. She'd come
And
back to the
her
light.
suffering would be over. So her
Right.
suffering would be temporary. And even
Right. Right.
7 years doesn't seem that long to me when you're viewing it from, a perspective of light.
Right.
And
Right.
he goes, no, you can't come. He said, you need to remember what I said. He touched me in my
Wow.
forehead, and I woke up on the couch.
Oh my goodness.
And that was like a pivotal moment.
Yeah,
Did
no
I
doubt.
did I buy exactly? Did I buy into anything my dad said about all this? And I actually forgot because I thought it was
Really?
so gibberish. I remembered later
Right. Right.
because
Yeah. Bits and pieces.
I did tell my mom that I had this visitation with dad, and I thought she'd be really happy, but she was really not happy because she's like, why did he come to you and not me? Like I don't.
Right.
And my thought is because I was in a different place of my life of grief at that point than she was.
Right. For sure. Yes.
Right? Because, kids, heal differently and faster sometimes than adults in relation
Yes.
to loss and such.
Right.
And doesn't mean that you wouldn't miss the person or what have you, but you heal differently as a child. You adapt
Hmm.
because you're so it's just the way your brains are conditioned.
Yeah, for sure.
But my mom would grieve another 2 years after that. So it was like 3.5 years after my father passed, and someone else would show up in her life, and she started to kind of find her way through it all.
Hmm.
And I was happy for her. I was happy that all kind of transpired. But I'm at that time when they met, I kind of decided it was time with my new stepdad. It was time to kind of make a move. So I moved to Newfoundland for a little bit, lived with my grandmom, and did fishing for a year, thinking this is what I might be doing.
Right.
Then an old girlfriend calls and says, we should get back together. And I'm like, okay, there goes the idea of being a fisherman. So I fly back home, figuring it because she was now in Ottawa. She joined the
Right.
military. And
Oh,
and
okay.
I thought, how do I get to where she is?
Right.
Right. Because I would have done anything to be with her. And
Right.
then she called as soon as I got home. and said, you know what, I think I made a terrible mistake. I don't want you to come. And, you
Oh
know,
no.
I know, but you know what? Everything has a purpose
Right, right, right,
because I wasn't meant to stay in Newfoundland. And
right.
I was now in Nova Scotia contemplating life. Okay, where do I go from here? And then I think, well, what if I went, because there was not a lot of work in Nova Scotia. It's not that big of a province. And,
Hmm.
for work for a person with just a minimum of grade 12 was very minimal here. So I'm like,
Right,
okay,
yeah.
what do I do? I decided to go to Alberta, Calgary, and I had a couple of aunts that I could like connect to and find a job. That one of my aunts had a boyfriend who was working at a company and said they could get me on. Next thing you know,
Cool.
I'm in Alberta.
Right. And how
And
old were
that's
you
where
then?
I was probably 20.
That's so interesting because I did the same thing. It was Edmonton. Same
Yeah.
thing. I was 18, 19, and finished high school and then went to the big city.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, there's a reason for it all. And then I met a lady, got married, had children, and I was working hard at the same company for like 15 years there,
Right.
and I started to become more spiritual, let's say.
Right.
Not necessarily in regards to religion, because then I'll tell you what kind of like really transpired when that all happened. Because my daughter was born in 1995, my oldest daughter, and that's
Hmm.
really around it was 1994 that I started this kind of like spiritual journey. And it was because my dad died of a massive heart attack.
Right.
Before my daughter was born, I decided to go to the doctor because here I am in my early 20s, smoking, not exercising. I'm working pretty hard, but I
Hmm.
thought, I'll probably be just fine. So I'll go get my cholesterol checked.
Right.
So I went to the doctor, and the doctor asked me to come into the office. And she said, listen,
That's
Shawn,
never good, right?
no, no. She goes, your cholesterol is through the roof.
Wow.
Because what are you doing? Like,
Right.
what are you doing? Like, you eating, drinking bacon fat for breakfast and
Right. Right. Right.
you smoke, you better stop now, she said.
Wow.
And so she scared me so bad
Yeah.
that within a few weeks, I got the patch. I quit smoking. I started eating better. I started exercising, start going to the gym. And on top of that, I started to think, because I mean, when you're balanced in life, it's not just spirit.
Hmm.
It has to do with mind, body, and spirit. It's a connection between it all. And I
Absolutely.
was working on, bettering my headspace and, stress levels, and through I started to meditate more. I started
Hmm.
to practice meditation. I started to pick up different books on meditation. I started listening to different audible meditations and different things that would kind of take me in these different journeys. And I started to
Right.
pray more, not in the sense of like, okay, our Father or anything like that. It would be just having words with, my angels, my guides, my ancestors, and just
Right.
speaking to them, asking them for help with this and that. And I started to walk a more spiritual path of life on top of, bettering my health for food and exercise and my headspace. I started to become more spiritual at that point of life. And it was about balance.
Right. For
And
sure. And you were
because
how old then?
I was probably 23, 24.
So still young. Still young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because my youngest daughter was born in 1995, so I'm 53 now, so I don't know what the math is on that, but in
Right.
my early 20s anyway. But
Yes. Yes.
so because I started this spiritual path, and because I put all of my interests of paranormal, my interests of things, we took a back burner because now you're working, you're providing,
Yeah.
you have to like
Husband,
pay the bills,
father.
your husband, father, you're busy,
Yes.
that's what your
Yes.
primary goal and focuses of life is. And
Yes. Yes.
and so that's when but because I started that spiritual journey, I started to have experiences,
Mm. It
kind
started
of
to open
odd
up
one.
for you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
started to open. I was starting
Yes.
to become more connected. I was started
Right.
to
Right.
realize I was being heard, that this
Right.
is
Right.
just words to the wind,
Right.
literally, that this
Yes.
is actually words that are being heard by people that are responding to things that I'm asking for help with.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't like make me rich or anything like that. It's just, help me, connect to this person or that person. And they would show up in front of my house of all places and a million plus people. It's just like,
Right.
it's not even possible. Yet it happened, right? And because I started to become like more visual in my mind through meditation, I started to awaken and rework a part of my brain that was atrophied, let's say.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And so that visual cortex of the inner visual sight that we have that connects to spirit, that allows communication to take place, I
Right.
was working on, and I was doing it unconsciously.
Right, right.
And then I started to meet people and know things about them, and or I'd have a vision flash in my mind about somebody, and I'd be like, and then at the first I was thinking, okay, well, this is just a coincidence, or I'm a mind reader of some sort. Maybe I'm
Still fighting it, right?
right.
You're
I'm still
still
not like buying into it all, even though I had a visitation with my dad. I'm
right,
resistant because
right,
I'm
right.
skeptical, and I think being healthy skeptical with everything is good. But I think
For
it's
sure.
shouldn't block. And
Right.
so I was open to the process of like exploring it more. And I remember going to my ex-wife's work and going, okay, I think that guy might be dealing drugs on the side. This guy might be stealing money, and I wouldn't
You
trust
knew
him
this
with a
stuff.
till.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
people look like they're having an affair. I don't know,
Right,
but
right,
so these are just vibes, like senses,
right.
right?
Yes.
I wasn't seeing anything, but I just sensed things.
Yeah, your psychic abilities for sure.
Right, psychic. So I was really becoming more psychic at the beginning.
Yeah.
And she told a friend that she works with named Jen Syme. And because again, after I told my ex-wife these things, she said, she thought I was like crazy at first. She
Right.
said,
Thought you were losing it. Yeah.
I'm losing my mind. Like, there's no way. They were married to other people. That guy's father's a minister, etc.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
then within a week, she caught the couple kissing. The guy got fired for
Wow.
stealing money. And actually, cops come and arrested the guy for dealing drugs
Holy.
at work of all places. So I mean,
Right.
what's the odds of all that happening, right? And
Right, right. There's
so
your
she tells her,
validation.
right, she tells her friend Jen Syme about this whole experience. Jen wants to see me now. So Jen's coming over for a reading. We're going to do a reading for Jen on Sunday. We're going to have dinner, and then after dinner, I'm going to sit with her and we're going to see what comes through.
Right, right.
And so we do that, and she's hoping
And this
for
is the first time that you were like, okay, I
I'm
can
going to
do
give,
this.
I'm because I never even set it up. They set it up.
Right, right,
And I'm like, I'm open to it. I'll do my best. I mean, I can't
right.
promise
You see
anything,
what
and
happens.
I see what happens. And
Right,
if
right,
anything, I'll have fun with it, right? So
right. Yeah,
I
yeah.
met her, and I'm like thinking that she's, I asked her if she, for whatever reason, I said, I mean, you don't know anybody named Dale, do you? And she goes, I just met Dale. I'm like,
Oh.
really? Yeah, and she's married to Dale still.
Wow.
And I said, that's so strange, but I feel or sense that you're going to be like traveling, and I see pets and animals. And she goes, we just talked about this, and I really like Dale. And we said, well, what a good business it would be if we could look after people's homes and pets in different places of the world so we get to travel and we have a place to stay for free. She goes,
Right,
I work for my dad. I can do it from anywhere,
right,
online or whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is very coincidental that I'm getting this.
right, right.
And it's
Yeah.
got to be coming from her, right?
Right,
Like
right,
somehow I'm able to like vibe it from her, and I don't know how I'm vibing. It's the mind reading stuff.
right, right. Yes.
And then she goes, well, I really was hoping that you would connect to somebody for me. But I never had done that before. She goes,
Right,
can you try? Like there's a few people like to connect, and one particularly that I've always wanted to talk to. And I've been to other people, but I've
right.
never made the connection.
And at this point, you never talked about mediumship. Didn't know what it meant. Didn't know that clairvoyant. Like none of the
No,
terminology.
none of the
Nothing.
terminology, nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. So just a clean
So,
slate. Just a
right.
completely clean
I'm
slate.
just like, okay, well, I don't know, Jen, I can't do this. I'm sure your grandmom's with you. Is she passed? She goes, fast, right? She goes,
Right.
oh, and I said, well, this is how if I was to visualize her, this is what she would look like to me. And she goes, that's my grandma.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of weird, but maybe it's
Right.
because she's thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
She-
Yeah.
There's someone else I want you to talk to, and I'm hoping that you'll talk to. And I'm like, this is the reason that I really wanted to see you, because I think that you have a gift and you just don't know it.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, I don't believe I can. I think this is the best I'm going to do. And she says, try.
Right.
I sat there and I started to focus, and I kind of went into kind of a mental kind of blank state within my mind.
Right.
So I was creating space, like I do with meditation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, out of the blue, this image came into my head. And it was just a very quick image that kind of flashed through my head just for a moment, like a foggy little faint image.
Right.
And then what I saw was a young man wearing a baseball uniform. He had a number on. He had a baseball in his hand. He bounced it up and down in his hand a couple times, and he was standing in front of a shed outside,
Right. Right.
like in the backyard.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, I don't know what this means, Jen.
Right.
Um,
I don't know if I'm making it up.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know if
what
I'm
this is,
imagining
but
it.
I hope this is the person you want to talk to.
Right. Right.
I tell her, and she cried.
Right. Right.
Tears are coming down her face. She goes, "That's him. Do you?" And I said, "I don't know. He just walks into the shed. That's all I see." And I said, "How do you know this guy?" She goes, "Well, we played baseball growing up in high school."
Mm.
And one night after a game, he went home, he killed himself in the shit.
Oh my goodness.
And I've wanted to know that he's okay. Is there a message from him? Is there anything that you can get from him? And I'm like,
Right.
and I didn't know what to say because I didn't see anything else. But I said is I feel like he's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where this came from, to be honest,
Right. Right.
but I feel like he's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I seen him smile. So,
Right.
and she goes, that made her happy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And next thing you know, she leaves, and I'm still like thinking this might be
Right.
mind.
Right.
And I get five other waitresses calling me from different places.
Right.
I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
So I'm like, it intrigued me enough to explore it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna see what happens if I do this. And more things started to happen. And what I realized that I was creating space in my mind to allow myself to receive things.
Right. Right.
And I would just trust what, and sometimes I didn't know what it meant. I just said it and it just
Yeah.
made sense to people. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm glad it makes sense to you because I have no
Right.
idea. And
Right.
that's how it kind of all transpired.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love the way that so and it's interesting that how you keep calling it mind reading. So you were like, so really you didn't even it's not like you had read about it in a book or you'd seen somebody doing it and you were like, "Oh, I want to be like that."
After that, I started to watch people.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
Because you're
I
like,
was
there's
like, how
something
does this
to
work?
this.
Because I'm like, now
Yeah.
this is, there's something to this.
Right.
I start watching like John Holland. I start watching Sylvia Brown. I start watching
Yeah. Yeah.
different people like Derek Acora from England. I
Right.
was like now enthralled with wanting to know more how this works.
Absolutely. Yes. Once you first see that first spirit person, it's like that door opens and you never forget the first spirit person that you see. It's
No.
like you saw him yesterday. Absolutely. And then it's so interesting too because I feel like this is and maybe let me know your thinking on this. Mediumship is so different than psychic work. Like it's they're two different worlds
Yeah.
really. And most people are psychic. Most people have the ability to do this. But mediumship is like you have to find that sweet spot. And so it's not just as simple as oh I go in to meditate and then I meditate and then it comes in. It's like you said, you actually have to go in there and create space,
Yeah.
which is a different space than meditation and not many people can find that space or have access to that space. So,
And I think if I was to tell people, it's not like you have to stay in that space for long periods. It's moments of space that you create.
right, right,
And in those moments of space that you create for them to push something through, whether it's a
right.
thought, feeling, visual,
Yes,
sensory, etc., whether it's clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance,
yeah,
clairaudience, clairalience, all these like funny words, but
right.
there's different ways that they can communicate things through and with you. And some of
Yeah,
them
for
might be
sure.
like three of these things at once. You know,
Right,
you'll hear a name, you'll see something, you'll feel a poke in your liver or something like this. Or I'll
right.
feel
Yeah,
pressure on my liver all at the same time. Like, okay, well, just
right.
give me, and then I'll tell Spirit, okay, just give me some time here,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Slow it
I'll
down a little
validate who
bit.
this is, what's
Yes,
going on, and all
yes.
this. And they're like, oh my God, that's my Uncle Joe, and he did have a liver problem, and
Right, yes,
and I'll just keep going from there.
yes.
And so it's once I validate, I then create space again, small moments of space for more information to come in.
Right, right.
And they only
Yes,
give you little pieces at a time. So what happens is
exactly.
what comes through, I work with, I validate, create
Yes,
space. What comes through, I still I validate, validate.
yes, yes.
And then sometimes once I've validated enough, then I get the ultimate message of what they're coming through with, what
Right,
they need
yeah.
to hear in this moment, what they're struggling with, what pain they're having, the space in life where they're stuck.
Right, right.
Because
Absolutely.
I mean, people when they come through, they want to validate who they are, yes, but they're coming through because they want to let you know they're with you and around you,
Right.
that they love you and that they still spend time with you. But
Yes,
also, if they see that you're struggling in a certain area, then they want to
yes.
give you some information to kind of help you work through that.
Yeah,
Because they don't want
absolutely.
to see you struggling. They don't want to see you stuck in grief. They don't want to see you like being in pain. You know, they love you and they want to see you in a good space of life.
Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
where when people coming from the other side, and I know that sometimes people may have an uncertainty of where who is from a higher level of spirit to somebody who is like maybe an earthbound spirit, because sometimes
Right.
there's earthbound spirits, right?
Right. Yes,
Earthbound
exactly.
spirits have a different energy. You know,
Right.
they have ego. They can get angry. They can be still like people. You know what I mean? And the people
Right.
not in the good way. That
Yes.
they're upset because you're in their space, or they're banging around trying to scare you so you'll move away from them or what have you. But people on the other side, they don't do stuff like they may leave you little things to remind you that they're there,
Right, right.
or to say that I'm here with you, visiting you. But
Yes.
they're when they come through, for me, and how I can tell the difference is that I know because they care about you.
Mhm.
They love you. I can feel
Right.
the love that they have for you. And I
Absolutely.
can feel through the messages that they give and how much they care about you and being well.
Right, absolutely.
And, spirit and a higher level of energy come from that space.
Yes.
And
Yes.
people who are more earthbound or other spirits that you may bump into don't have that care for you like your loved ones.
Yes, you can feel the difference for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. It's I did, evidential mediumship for years and, have done thousands of readings for clients. And it's very interesting for me because it started to shift and change. And one of the things that, I could you can never really fully explain, but when you're somebody who has connected with spirit and connected with a loved one in spirit, the amount of love that pours through when they're doing the connection is, you can't even describe it. It's undescribable, the amount of love that comes through. And I was finding more and more that when their loved ones in spirit were coming through, they wanted to talk about their job, their relationships, their struggles, the stuff that they were going through. And I was finding that my clients were like, "No, I don't want to talk about that. Just tell me that my dad was at my party and he saw me wearing my red dress. I want that validation."
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, because after a while when you do this, I started to get a little frustrated with my clients. I was like, "No, you don't understand. They want you to be better. They want to help you. They want to talk about your stuff." This because a lot of people would use it as a crutch, right? They would want to I want to connect with my father, but your father's not sitting on a park bench in heaven waiting for you. This is,
Yes.
it's life after life. It's everlasting, right? We're constantly and they want you to live in this life now. They don't want you to sit there and mourn their passing.
Yeah.
They want you to continue doing this. And it's interesting for me because at some point my team, and you know this because when they call you to this work, it's really they call the shots. You're not calling any shots.
Yeah.
But they started to switch my focus to medical mediumship. So at some point, a while back, I don't bring through loved ones in spirit anymore, which was an interesting transition because then I was like you, okay, well, now what do I do? Now how do I show up and be of service that
Mhm.
way? But they shifted it into helping people specifically, with physical issues, with this stuff. So it's an interesting transition. Have you ever experienced anything like that in all of the time
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're doing this?
I mean, most like all of my readings, there'll be some element of validation that they're with you, and they'll tell me something abstract that
Right.
no one should know except you.
Right.
And so that to know that it's really them, because you can't know it's them unless there's no way I can't know. So they'll give me something to say, this is me, I am with you. They may give me their name, which is
Yes.
something that anybody could probably look up.
Right.
And what they'll give me is something strange that only you know, or
Right.
something that has just happened in your house that no one else could know.
Right. Right.
For instance, and this is on season one of Spirit Talker. I was in Yarmouth, doing an episode down there. I think it was season one, and it was Acadia First Nation. It may have been season two, but I think it was season one. But when I made a connection, there was because I did a live audience session, and
Mm-hmm.
when I made the audience session, I connected to this young lady who lost her life to cancer, and I
Right.
described her, and I got her name, and her mom stood up and validated her,
Yeah.
which is one part of this.
Right.
Now she showed me something that was very kind of awkward for me.
Right.
And I was like, okay, this is odd. This is very awkward at the same time because I wasn't sure how I should approach this. I'm standing in front of people. This woman's crying because she's making a connection to her daughter who lost her life to cancer. And
Right.
then her daughter did this to me. She takes her shirt off and she's standing there in her bra.
Wow.
And then she holds up her bra like this.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Right.
That's what I see in my mind. I'm like, oh,
Right.
and maybe even in the show you'll see me stutter. I'm like, what the hell?
Right. Like, how do I say this and not
How
sound
do
like a
I say
weirdo?
this to this
Yeah.
mother in front of people being filmed on TV, for God's
Right.
sake?
Right. Right.
How
Yeah.
do I approach this?
Yes.
And I said, okay, I'm so sorry. I have to say what they're telling me, but
Right.
you must have done something with a bra.
Right.
And then she goes, oh my God, it's really her. And then her two
Yeah.
sisters that were in the audience there too jump
Yeah.
up and go, holy shit, it is her.
Right.
And it's
Right.
because in the back room, at the funeral home or at the church service before the service, because she lost so much weight and she always wished that she had bigger bosoms,
Right.
what they did was they were going to send her to the spirit world with a new bra and fill it so she'd have bigger bosoms when she
Oh
went
my
there.
goodness.
So in the back room before the service, they were back there. They took her shirt off, they
Right.
redressed her, put a new bra on, stuffed it all full of stuff, put
Right.
it
Right.
back on, dressed her back up, and she was out in front of the church. And
Wow.
only mom and the two sisters
Right. Right.
know this.
Huge validation. So she
And
was
they're
like, "Thank you for the boobs. Thanks for the
right.
boobs." Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like, oh my God, this is her, right? But then
Yes.
it then next, okay, because now that you know this is her without doubt, because it's not something they've shared with anybody.
Right. Right. Right.
The message that comes through is about where her mom's in her grief, right? Where
Right.
she can heal,
Right.
where she's been stuck, where she's been struggling for the last 5 years. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you know what she said after the reading, and the message that came through, it's the first time she had a day where she felt she's never been happier. Is
Right. Right.
because of she felt happy. She couldn't stop smiling all day. And she said she hadn't smiled in 5 years.
Yeah. Wow. Life
And it was
changing.
just that she felt joy in her heart again.
Right.
And it was
Right.
because her daughter was guiding her to be
Yeah.
in the space again, that it was
Yes.
okay, Mom. I am okay. This is me. I'm with you. I'm
Yeah.
around.
Exactly.
But I want you to be in a better space. Now,
Yes.
something
Yes.
else they may talk about in a reading, like you're saying, medical mediumship. I may be talking to somebody. Now I know she's making me feel she has breast cancer. One, she's emphasizing the bra, but I
Right.
may have felt, okay, well, there must have been an issue with her, a cancer that was in the breast because I can feel something in the breast, but I also feel it went to the lung because I can feel where it goes in the lung. I can
Right.
feel the exact spot it went into the
Yes.
lung. So
Yes.
she's telling me about her illness.
Right.
I may see her, but I may feel the illness that she had.
Right.
And sometimes they'll tell me about the issues that people have in life.
Right. Right.
I'll
Yes.
start to have pain in my right kidney.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, okay. Somebody's
Right.
obviously got a problem in their right kidney. And she goes,
Mm-hmm.
I've been just diagnosed with kidney stones in my right kidney. Right.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So why is spirit taking me from, hey, this is me to healing you to, hey, this is about you now.
Right.
This is about you not only emotionally, but
Yes.
physically. There's something
Right.
off in balance in
Yes.
your body that we want to help you with.
Right.
And we
Yes.
have to give you some information here. So I
Yes.
said, okay, well, there's like some issue with your kidney in the right side for sure.
Right.
And you need to go get it checked out because I've been there. They just diagnosed me with kidney stone. Well, your daughter knows about this. I'm not saying this story is not connected to this woman, but I'm just
Right.
giving you a scenario how that might come through.
Right.
And so anyway, I tell her you need to go to the doctor. You need to maybe think about some natural medicines because I know some people. I passed a kidney stone in the past twice now, and
Wow.
one of the things I took was called Chansapedra, which is a supplement that you can take that could break down stones in your kidneys.
Right.
I
Right.
was taking that for a while because the doctor said we can't do anything unless we do surgery. So I took
Right.
Chansapedra, and eventually it broke down the stone, and I passed it.
Right.
One
Good
time
to know. That's a good
yeah, I know,
teaching.
but I mean, I
Yeah.
would say, okay, I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
this is something I did when I had a kidney stone.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
and I have various knowledge and different things in life. I
Yes.
say, you should consult with a doctor first and foremost,
Right.
especially when I'm doing anything medical and mediumship wise in regard.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm not saying this is a cure. It could be, but
Right.
it may or may not help you. But I would do
Right.
your research and find out because right now you're doing nothing.
Right. Right.
And you
Yes.
need to do something. And
Yes.
your daughter, your loved one in the spirit world
Right.
knows that you're stuck here. There's an
Right.
energetic
Right.
block. So we
Yes.
maybe do
Yes.
some I would say maybe think about going to
Right.
see healer, move energy in
Right.
the space, right? But you also need to do
Right.
things like
Right.
internally to kind of like help your heart be better, help your lungs be better, help your kidneys be better, help your liver be better,
Absolutely.
right? So that's
Absolutely.
a lot
And
of
you I
times,
mean, you have your Mi'kmaq grandma that's coming that, in the spirit world
yeah,
now, she has access to all of the medicine and the plants, and so
right.
definitely would be coming in and helping you with that for sure.
So I use some of that wisdom knowledge in relation to that to kind of guide people sometimes. But I
Yeah,
don't, I say,
absolutely.
but I always make sure I say, go to your doctor first and,
Right.
consult professionals. I'm a psychic. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
But
I know we have to come out with a
do your
disclaimer, right? We
research.
can't.
Do your research.
Right.
Don't just take
Exactly.
it at my
But the truth
word.
is, right. But the truth is, our people were using plants and, medicines to keep people
Yes.
alive before Western medicine was even, beginning. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I want to ask you, just because as a
Yeah.
spirit talker, and I love that that's, the kind of like branding that they've given you. And so you work in the light. This is obvious because what you do serves a purpose. It serves a greater purpose, right? Helping people to remember, that death is not the end of it. There's, so much more, which I feel like unless you are a medium, you kind of believe it, but you don't fully believe it, right?
Right.
Until you get to experience over and over again. But have you ever felt like you were targeted by the dark? So, like, give us an example. Like, what was one of the most intense or unexpected experiences that you've had with darker energies? And
Well,
how
I've
did
had
you
some
overcome them?
dreams like where I don't say I've ever was targeted. I do feel like there's earthbound spirits, and some earthbound spirits are just not of the light, let's say. Well, I don't say
Right,
they're evil or demons, or I never use those words. They're just people that are just shitty people that have not moved on,
right,
and they're still hanging
right.
around.
Yeah,
And occasionally they will show up in your room, maybe when you're sleeping,
right,
or show up in a dream, and you
right,
feel like somehow that they're trying to, diminish your light or do something to scare you. And
right, right,
I've had a few nights where I don't want to say battled, but I felt like I was fighting different beings that were not of the light. But
right.
ultimately, they can never win those battles because I come from the light. I work with the light. So when
Exactly.
you remember that in your dream
Yes,
and you face these things, you will always beat or overcome.
yes,
And so I sometimes have done, even in my dreams, I have visualizations, let's say.
right.
And I envision the light within myself and I blow light from my, even though, because sometimes you may feel like, and this is something my grandmom taught me about. We had this experience where you call it the old hag.
Right.
And then there's like this dark entity you feel like sitting on you. And a lot of therapists and psychologists will say, well, it's sleep paralysis, but there's still an experience with it because you
Absolutely.
experience an entity like in your room, sitting on your chest, holding you down, and you find it hard to breathe.
Right,
And
right.
you're struggling to push this thing off you. It's like you're
It's
trying to
very
force this
real.
off, and you feel
Yes,
like you can't lift it. It's like so heavy. It's like you're
right.
trying to get an elephant off your chest, for God's
Yes,
sakes.
yes,
But so sometimes I've had moments like that, but I've had to relax instead of fighting.
right.
Remember that I am the light, and just as greatly as I can blow light from, like, envision light coming from my mouth into the face of the thing that I'm facing.
Yes,
And
yes.
it dissipates it. It like steps off. It's like it
Right.
lets go. It's like, what the hell is going? It's like
Yeah.
instantly, and I've actually even felt um, because sometimes, you can help a spirit move into the light.
Right. Yes. Yes.
There's been a few dreams where I felt entities have come to me, like an earthbound spirit, like a lady
Yeah.
who may have been going through, maybe had severe mental illness,
Right.
and
Right.
still decided to hang around the building or what have you. And
Mhm.
I've in the dream transfigured her into the light itself.
Right. Right. Yes.
She made her transition through our interaction and through my experience within the dream.
Yeah. Within the dream state, using the
Right.
dream state as the, yeah, portal to the light.
Right. Now that's in a
Yes.
dream type of way. I've faced entities. Now, other
Right.
entities that I've faced that are in my waking state, I've run into all kinds, and they just sound like people. And sometimes they may, I've had one particularly that I remember that if you didn't know, you'd swear the devil and demons were real.
Right. Right.
And it was a pirate.
Hmm.
And he was, like, let's say, not the most nicest person.
Right.
And he's got like a history here in Nova Scotia, and his name was Edward Jordan. And I met him at Point Pleasant Park, and I didn't even know who he was.
Wow.
And I was doing like a spirit circle with some friends to connect to the paranormal.
Right. Right.
He showed up and he growled in my ear,
Mhm.
and growled enough because I had a guy there who filmed it too.
Right.
He recorded the growl and he says, "What the hell is that?"
So they heard it as
They heard
well.
it. It was loud enough that everybody heard him growl.
Wow. Wow.
And again, if you weren't as connected as I was, you may run and think, holy crap, demons and
Be
things like
scared of it. Right.
you,
Yeah.
you'd be scared. And he just about dropped his camera and ran, to be honest.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
not
Yeah.
scared. And I'm like, listen,
Right.
I know who you're pretending to be,
Exactly.
but I know who you are.
Right.
And then he
Yes.
starts speaking like a person
Very interesting.
because he was trying to scare me. So
Right.
why would an entity that is earthbound want to disturb you so that you leave? Because you're
Right.
in their space.
Yes.
This is where they exist. This is their home. This is where I've gone into their home and disturbed their home space by bringing my light and my light-filled people with me.
Right. Right.
So if he
Yes.
can make us
Yes.
all feel uncomfortable enough to get the hell out of there, he's won.
Right.
He's won that little. He's won the battle. Let's say he hasn't won the war, but he's gonna. Most people would
Right.
run, and I don't.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. And then
Right.
I've had my guide show up and help me and work with me, and
Yeah.
I've recorded
Yes.
my guide speaking to the man, and it's
Wow.
pretty cool when those things happen. But ultimately, if I encounter a being like this, I want to help them move into the light if I can. If not, they're going to have to. I will do enough spiritual work through smudging, prayer, ceremony, even just extending my aura, that they'll have to move away from me or move into the light
Hmm.
themselves. And it's a choice, their
Right.
choice. I'm not like forcing them into light. I can't go, okay, well, you're going into the light whether you like it or not. I'm going to grab you and you're going.
Right. Right. Right.
No,
Sending you in.
they will run like hell. Trust me. I've heard them run from me at different,
Right. Right.
like run. I was at Point Pleasant, not Point Pleasant, I was on another island called Tancook Island, Big Tancook Island.
Right.
I went over there to a small fishing shack, which a friend of a friend, my ex-wife's friend, had a little kiosk in a fishing shack, and she was selling because the ferry would come in with tourists in the summer, and she would
Yeah.
sell knickknacks, clothes, jewelry, and different things, right? That
Right.
for the tourists.
Yeah.
So she was in this shack, and I walked in. There was only me, my ex-wife, and her. And then I heard this guy go, "Oh my God, he's gonna know all my secrets." And I heard him like is like another male speaking, like,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
only the three of us are in there. And I'm like,
Right.
did you guys just hear that man? And I heard him running. You could hear his feet going out the door, like he was
Wow.
running out
Right.
and up the
Right.
hill. And I said, I just heard a man here. He said I was gonna know about him. And he ran up the hill up that way towards
Yeah.
that house.
Right.
Because that's funny because there used to be a house there.
Oh.
I said, really? She goes, yeah, a man killed himself and his children there.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, well, apparently he does have secrets,
Right. Right.
right?
Big
So
ones. Yeah.
but he knew who I was. I didn't, and like, I mean, which I think is amazing
Yes. Yes.
because how is it that spirit, an earthbound spirit, because I don't wear a t-shirt that says psychic medium Shawn Leonard or I'm White
Right.
Eagle spirit
Right.
talker,
Right.
or,
Right.
I don't walk around announcing myself when I walk into every room, like,
Right.
yes,
Right.
superhero Shawn
Yes.
Leonard's here.
Yes.
So but he knew who I was as
Right.
opposed to everyone else and
Exactly.
avoided me.
Right. Because your energetic template is different, right?
Right.
Your
Your
yeah.
aura, your
Yes.
energy, your color,
Yes.
your light. It's different
Absolutely.
around a person. And I feel like people who have different, and that's why being psychic, right?
Yes.
When you meet certain people, there's a
Right.
certain energetic vibration that you can sense, vibe, just know, and that person's a police officer. That
Exactly.
person is a
Exactly.
doctor or a nurse.
Yes. Yes.
This person does, customer service.
Right. Right.
Works as
Exactly.
a dentist. There's
Right.
different vibes for
Yes.
different people.
Yeah. So that's so
And
cool that you're doing this because a question that I get asked all of the time is, when, and I'm sure you get this, but when you're connecting to spirit, how do you know that you're truly connecting with something that is from the light, right? And that's exactly the way we do it.
yeah,
That's exactly the way. Because people have said, "Oh, are you sure that you're not connecting to somebody that is pretending to be?" So they can go and pretend all they want. They have a vibrational blueprint that we can see and feel. So,
yes, you can feel the difference between the spirits. There's
absolutely.
an energetic vibration between ego and earthbound as opposed to people that are coming from an unconditional loving space solely.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean the people on the other side can't have humor or they
Right.
don't have some humanistic traits that the good traits that they keep, but all of the things that you would think would be limiting or anger or frustration or fear, worry, you cannot carry that. That's like overcoats that we can't carry into the light.
Exactly.
Doesn't exist
Exactly.
there. That's why
Exactly.
we come here to carry these coats and to wear them for short times so that we
Right.
can learn from them, to learn who we are by carrying the fear, anxiety, the worry, the stress.
Yes. Yeah.
Eventually, hopefully, discover who we are so that these overcoats that we carry within our earthly existence can be shed within this plane. And if we
Yes.
can shed them here, we can help other people understand how they can shed theirs as well. And that's why there's people that are teachers. That's why people who have learned something from their experience that they can help others learn to overcome, grief, anxiety, stress, worry, fear, etc.
Yeah.
And
All of the lower vibrational frequencies
right, because that's
that
where
keep
this
us
exists within
earthbound.
this world, right? Earthbound, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really when you meet a spirit in the higher realm, it's absolutely completely different energy.
Right. Right.
Nobody in an earthbound realm is invested in making you feel good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nobody's invested. If
Right.
anything, they're invested in making you feel uncomfortable, weird, awkward, or you get the hell out of here. And I've had
Yeah.
people and I've met so many earthbound spirits in my time that um, I love when I do it. They're not everywhere, mind you. I don't run into, unless they're all running the hell away from me, which is
Right. Right.
possible
Right.
because
Right.
of that energetic vibration.
Yes.
But I went out to another property and this lady's still there. So I'm going to go back out and talk to her one day.
Yeah.
It's probably been about 8 years since I've been there, but I know she's still hanging around
Yeah.
because I went to this lady's house named Janet Maxwell McDonald, who's a friend on Facebook. And I went out there with my ex-wife to her, we'll call it cottage. It's a trailer, but
Right.
it's like a regular sized trailer, not a camper trailer.
Yeah.
And she put it on this piece of land out in Middle Musquodoboit, Nova Scotia, where she calls it her camp,
Right. Right.
to get out of the city and
Yeah.
go to her camp. Her son lives out that way, and he actually has a hunting camp back on the property in the backwoods, and he owns a big piece of land back there. So I went out there, and we're having a fire like 8 years ago, September evening. The the stars are out. It's beautiful. Like it's just
Right.
amazing. I'm not thinking about spirits.
Right.
I'm
Right.
thinking about just how amazing it is to be here on this night, to be
Yeah. You're just
near the
being
fire
Shawn.
with some friends, looking at
Yeah.
the stars.
Yeah.
And then this lady comes up to me and goes, "I don't like you on my property." And I heard her just like that and as
Right.
loud as that.
Right.
I'm like, holy crap, you got somebody on your land here. There's actually somebody. She goes, "Oh, that's so and so, and she used to live here." And I'm like, that sounds all light and fluffy and all, but this girl sounds kind of like not happy.
Right.
And I knew she was going to come back and talk to me. And I said, so I took my ex-wife's phone and I said, listen, I'm going to wait, and I hit record because this is where it gets really cool with me sometimes is when I connect to an earthbound spirit,
Yeah.
I can record them talking to me.
Wow.
So I take up my ex-wife's phone, I hit record, and I wait 15 minutes. And I'm just
Yeah.
again going back into this kind of, space of like observing the stars and it kind of freaked me out that she'd come because I didn't know she was there.
Right. Right.
But she
Yeah.
came up loud enough about this far from me and spoke directly into my ear
Right.
so I
In your
would hear
space.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but not she didn't do anything to me, just like,
Yeah.
just tell me how much she was not happy that I was there.
Right.
Again,
Right.
that ego, right? That anger, that frustration.
Yes.
I'm in her space.
Right.
And so I wait 15 minutes. She comes back and she says she does talk to me and I record her. She goes, "Tell that woman's son to stop hunting on my property." And I'm like,
Really.
"Got her." And I
And it
stop.
was in the recording. You
You can
could
hear it
hear.
just like that.
You're kidding me.
No, as plain as day is like that.
Wow.
And she goes, and I said, like, who is this lady? And she says, well, we don't really know who she is, but she used to own this land. And
Right.
she actually, right where we're having the fires, where her house used to be.
Wow. Were they not like freaked out about the like, well, now
No,
you've
because they said
captured
they
the.
feel her around every now and then.
Oh, so this was like normal to them, but
Yes, but they never hear her like I've heard her.
right.
They've
Right.
never actually heard her voice, but when I recorded and played it back to them, they could hear her.
Oh my God, Shawn. I've never heard of that. Is that something that I've heard about mediums having like, back in the day there was this special recording stuff that they would use to capture that, but it's rare. Like that's
Yes. So
rare.
that's where I'm maybe a little bit wired differently, I guess.
Yeah,
But
clearly
when it comes
clearly.
to earthbound spirits, I could be with other people and
Right.
nobody around me would hear.
Right.
If I have a digital recorder and they
Right.
talk to me, I
Right.
can stop it and play back and you can hear the earthbound spirit talking to me.
Oh my goodness.
But you couldn't hear them in live, but you could hear them on the recording. So there's something on the recorder that
Right.
is like it's I don't know. It just it has no
So does it work as well though? So if it was somebody's loved one in spirit, in the spirit realm, can you
sometimes
record their voice as well?
not as clearly as I can the earthbound spirit.
That's so interesting, isn't it?
Because Yeah, because sometimes I
It must
do
have to do with
readings.
frequency though, right? Because if they're earthbound, their vibrational frequency is still low enough
Right.
that we can capture it on. That's very
But
interesting.
when, and I also feel with higher level energy, they have to lower their energy to make the connection.
Exactly.
But they
Exactly.
still don't lower it as low as the vibration of the earthbound spirits.
Right. To be able to get it on a
So
recorder
every
to be
now
able
and
to,
then you'll
yeah.
catch something.
Right. Right.
And during my sessions, when I used to do one-on-ones, occasionally I would catch their loved ones saying things.
Wow.
I would hear it.
Wow.
And I said, I
Yeah.
just heard them say this.
Right.
And I said, okay, I look at my recorder and say, listen, when you go home
Yeah.
at the 11:11 mark,
Right.
check the recording because you may
Right.
hear a voice in there. So they go
Right.
home and they listen and they go, oh my God, I heard my son.
Wow.
My son, because I said, there was one session I did, and I'm not going to be able to share this with the public, but there was a lady whose son, they came to see me. Their son unfortunately was murdered, um,
Right.
not far from where my office is in Dartmouth in Cole Harbour, and you know, he, he was murdered. So, and I said some things on there that I can't have public in any way, right? And the fact
Right.
that even
Right.
if they
Right.
said, I mean, I might be able to cut out the tattoo part, but because I said he was telling me about a tattoo, and I said he just said tattoo to me,
Right.
and because I said
Yeah.
you were thinking about getting the tattoo for him, but you haven't got it yet, and I think I heard him verbally enough that you could hear him saying it to me. They go home
Right.
and
Right.
listen, and they call me back, and they go, "We heard our son. My son
Oh my
said
goodness.
tattoo in the background, and I heard him saying it."
Oh my goodness. I'm
And
gonna cry.
I have that on my computer, like it, but I can't, again, I would
Yeah.
never put it up publicly.
Right.
And I can't
Right.
put things out there because I mean, it has to do with the man that was murdered too. But,
Right. This
um,
you don't understand how. So my father passed away when I was 3 in a car accident that my mom and I were in the car accident with, and I have no, so because of the trauma and the amount of, and I actually had a near death experience when I was 3 being in the accident with it, but I have no memory of my father's voice. There's
right,
no, like, and all the memories of my dad are just from what my family would tell me about. And I can remember this was years ago. I was probably about 2021, and I was in my grandfather's house, and I was looking through some of his old boxes, and I found a cassette, an audio cassette. And my grandpa happened to have a stereo, and so I popped the audio cassette in there, and it was somebody recording in my grandpa's house, and my grandma was there and she was talking, and my mom was there and I could hear her voice. And my grandma says, "Oh, Jodi Lynn, come and sit here with your daddy. Daddy's here too." And in that second, the cassette went and it stopped.
wow,
And I never got to hear my dad's voice. Like, so to imagine, and it was such a, so the thing that you're able to do with that, oh my God, that's a,
right. But I think
what?
it happened because even when I first started off, I mean, I didn't know I could record spirits. Because way back in the day when I started doing sessions, my first experience with a spirit, which kind of really cool, but it also scared the bejeebus out of me when it happened,
Right.
because when I started doing sessions, I had a tape recorder
Yeah.
because there was no CDs, there was no MP3s,
Right.
there was like
Right.
I didn't even have a computer back in
Old
the
school.
it
Yeah.
was old
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
That yeah, and then you had to test the tapes because they didn't always record.
Right.
You had to
Right.
test to make sure they would work. So, because
Yes.
you hit
Yeah.
record and then there'd be blank, right? Because then somebody would
Yes.
call and say, listen, I listened to the whole recording. There's nothing there.
Right.
So I
Right.
started testing them before I would hit, you'd have to hit play and record together to record, right? So
Right. Yes.
I put play and record and I go testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Now I'd already done my preparation. I had
Yeah.
invited the spirits to come to connect to me for the people that were coming. I'd prayed, I meditated, I smudged my space, I made the invitation, and then I
Right.
would
Right.
test my tape.
Yeah.
And then and it was only me home, only me in the house.
Right.
And so my client was coming, but about 5 minutes before they came, I played to hear the recording to make sure the tape. And then in the background, I heard somebody go, I'm right here.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I was like, I played it back in. I'm going to tell you, all the hairs on the back of my neck went up.
No doubt. Right.
I was like, what the hell? But
Yeah.
I played it for the lady and she goes, oh my God, that's my dad.
Oh my goodness.
And I gave her the tape. I mean, I wish I would
Right.
have kept it because I would have had a recording of my first voice I've ever recorded. But then
Right.
I knew it was possible that you could actually record spirits.
Wow. Have you ever asked your guides, like, have you ever asked them, like, how is that I'm doing this? How are you guys doing? Like, 'cause to me, I
Mm.
would be
I
like,
don't know. I don't
it's
know. I
huge. Like,
never
I'm
asked.
telling you, like, this is huge. That this is like, yeah, I feel like if everybody knew that you could do that, you would have a million people lined up at your door.
Well, I can't, it doesn't happen all the time with higher level energy spirits.
Right, right,
Sometimes it does, sometimes
right.
it doesn't. I've worked on different things. I can't say too much, but I've worked with the police here in Nova Scotia a couple of times. And
Yeah.
I've been out on an investigation and recorded the spirit of the person that we were talking about in the background.
Wow.
I'll be talking about something about, this area, and then in the background, you can hear him saying, I did not jump.
Really?
I'm like, okay, well, and then I play back and let them listen and say, well, she didn't jump. Like
Right, right.
she didn't do
Wow.
this in like
Yeah.
intentionally. I think it was an accident. And she didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's happened a few times too. But
Wow.
the earthbound spirits are the ones that I get the clearest. I mean, other
Right.
than my guide interacting with them,
Right, right.
and if you go to my YouTube channel, I actually have couple of really cool. I got 11-minute clip of different voices I've recorded.
Oh, okay. I'll put the link. We'll have the
Yeah.
link in the
And then
video
I
for
have
that.
another one where my guide Victoria is talking to another spirit named Howard Carter. And I was on at McNabb's Island, and there was a spirit out there named Howard Carter, and he was telling me who he was.
Hmm.
And I record him, and you can hear him telling me his name.
Really?
And you can hear him saying, Howard Carter, like that.
Really?
And they have all of a breathy type of voice.
Right, right, right.
So you can hear him, and then you'll hear my guide talking, saying, the light way, the light is.
Really?
She was telling him the light is the way to go.
Right.
For
Yeah.
him, she
Yeah.
was trying to help him too.
Oh my goodness.
And she was guiding him to the light. And she in a very, very low whisper of a voice, you'll hear her saying, the light way, the light is. And when she says
Right.
is, she's emphasizing. She's like, the light is. Like
Is the way.
she was
Yes.
trying to explain to him the light is the way to go for him.
That's beautiful. That's
And
so
so that now
powerful.
this is amazing because this is not me speaking. This is my
Right.
guide
So
working with
now
me
you've got your
speaking.
guide on there and you've got an earthbound
Yeah,
spirit on there.
yeah,
So I feel like Shawn, you were like exploding the world of mediumship to I feel like, we are in such an interesting time on this planet. And those of us who have the calling and that are here to really change things. Like, can you imagine if this just became more and more where you were like, well, actually, yeah, see what you see here is not everything. Look at all of where we come from. And really important remembering, because this has been coming up in my stuff so much, is how important it is to remember and say with intention that we are the light, we come from the light, we are, because of the darkness that's on the planet,
right. I
right.
mean, in my culture, I mean, we have what you call star teachings. We have four sacred fire teachings and why we have teachings in relation to our culture and Mi'kmaq culture is um, because we remember who we are, where we come from, the first sacred light. I mean, if we're physical
Right.
beings, I mean, if you think about it, the sun, the remnants of old stars have created
Hmm.
all of the elements for which have brought together the physicality of the worlds itself. We're made up of
Right, right.
stardust.
We're made up of
And it's
stardust,
created
yes.
carbon, it's created oxygen, it's created all these elements that allows light to
Right,
exist. But we
right,
always start our ceremonies as Indigenous people facing the east, honoring and remembering the grandfather sun. Because where the
right,
sun
right,
rises in the east, we always go to the eastern direction. We start our ceremonies there
right,
to reconnect to that first physical sacred light that came into being. Because from
right,
grandfather sun, all things have transpired into the physical world in the physical way. I mean, there's a spirit to grandfather sun as well. You can call that
right,
crater, but it's also that spirit is in all things that we see, and we even have teachings around that. Like Em Nogama, which means all my relations, because we honor the connection to the grandfather rocks, to grandmother moon, to the trees, to the animal nation, to the insect nation, to the human nation. I mean,
right.
there's a spirit in everything. And
Yes,
even though there's a physical aspect of the experience of everything that's within the world, there's also a spirit having an experience through everything, not just human experience.
absolutely,
And it's that
absolutely.
interconnection and remembering how we're all connected to everything and that we honor the spirit of Mother Earth. We honor the spirit of the trees. We honor the spirit of the medicines that you pick. You honor
Right.
the medicine of the food that is being given to you, whether it's from an animal or from plant.
Right. Right. Yes.
And so it's
And
really,
then we remind we're all, that's all our brothers and sisters. These
yeah,
are all,
they're
yes,
our ancestors.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Grandfather's son is our ancestor.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
because even
That's
though
so
grandfather's
powerful, right?
right, and all the other stars are all, they're all connected. I mean, and there's this quantum entanglement, right? I mean,
Hmm.
everything's
Yes.
connected in the universe because you have, I mean, quantum entanglement is a theory, not a theory, it's a scientific fact that there is quantum entanglement,
Yes.
right? They've been able to prove it in
Yes.
experiments that there's quantum entanglement. And that means when particles, even though they're separated at a distance, are still connected. So if you think about it, all of the suns and earths and planets within the universe itself, and not just in our solar system,
Yes.
when the Milky Way and beyond, I mean, in indigenous culture, we really focus on the Milky Way, but
Right.
we're connected to everything,
Absolutely.
because all the remnants of all the other stars that have gone supernova and gone out into the universe itself have come
Mm,
together to form new molecules and atoms and
mm.
all this to create life within the universe.
I
So
love
when
this so
there's death,
much.
there's
Yes.
life. And
Yes.
we are the same. If you
Yes.
think about the human existence and not just suns out in the universe, we are
Yes.
like miniature sacred parts of that light that have come
Yes.
into the physical world to be here to exist for a time and then go into supernova or death, we'll call it, shed the layer of who we once were to go into an experience of the spirit from which we come from in the first place.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
mimic the stars.
Yes, I love that so much. That's I'm telling you that's the shift that we're doing right now. That's the so that light that you're igniting in every soul that's going to watch this video, that transmission is coming in, that remembering, right? That's the such a powerful and especially again, I hate to be that, always talking about the dark, but this is I love the way you've done this because this is the reminder that we are the light again and the dark that's coming in tries to infiltrate us, but we are so much more powerful than that, right? We're stepping into
Yeah.
our power for
But
sure.
we're meant to be blended. I mean, there's a space for the people who don't remember who they are or choose to move back into the light. There's a space that exists for them.
Right,
The
right.
creator
Yes.
and an unconditional loving mindset has
Yes.
given us like free will to
Yes.
choose to remember who you are and return to who you are.
Yes.
Don't lose, you don't lose yourself, because even though we're a drop from the ocean, we return to the ocean, you still have the consciousness and the spirit of who you've always been through your many lifetimes. But the people that
Absolutely.
resist that understanding and
Hmm.
fear the light or fear moving into it,
Yes.
Creator says, I love you so much, I'll create a space until you remember who you are and you can return to me at any point.
Beautiful.
So the earthbound space, the physical space from which they cling,
Yes.
they cling to the memory of who they once were, the property out in Musquodoboit, or the man who killed himself and his children out in Cook Island. There's still a space for them. And one day, and it may take hundreds of years, they'll say, I don't want to be like this anymore.
Right.
I
Right.
choose to grow and be greater than this experience.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the light will reappear, and they'll find somebody like you, or they'll find someone else who's a light worker
Hmm.
and help them find their space, or find my guide will help them,
Hmm.
like the words, because it's, we can try to help them. We can't force. I mean, you can't go to somebody on the street and go, hey, I'm going to make you well.
Right. Right.
I
Exactly.
can't
Same
make
thing.
you be well so you don't live on the street. I mean,
Right.
you can try to
Exactly.
help them, but it's still, they have free will to choose that existence if they choose.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's no different in spirit,
Right. Exactly. Yes.
right? It's just it just minus the body, they still cling to the property and who they once were.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
that lady's still out there because Janet Maxwell McDonald had she messaged me about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and she said her son was out hunting on the property. And
Right.
one night at 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody came, start banging on all the windows and doors and the walls. He gets out with his gun because, I mean, he's got a gun. He's hunting.
Right. Right.
Nobody there.
And nobody was there.
No, scared them so much he won't sleep back there anymore.
Right. No doubt.
So he wandered around a bit in the woods, and I guess he found some mounds back there.
Wow.
So who knows? I mean, who these people are? Could be her whole family is buried back
Right,
there,
right,
and she
yeah,
she doesn't want
yeah.
to leave her family. Or,
It's their
I mean, I
sacred
didn't hear
land,
anything else,
and
but she's definitely hanging out there. And I'm
yeah,
looking, and she said I could come back anytime, so I just got to find time, bring a few friends, and go out there. And I'd like to go back out there, and because I don't have that recording of her voice from that time, because my ex-wife and me
right,
separated, it was on her phone.
right,
I'd like
right.
to get a new recording of her out there,
That'd be
and
amazing,
then bring it
amazing.
back to how people hear her. And she sounds just like
Absolutely.
how I've have, like, I cannot like amplify and exemplify her voice any greater than I have, but it sounds just like that.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. I need to come out east. I want to go. We'll have to come out. I'll have to come out east and be part of that with you. That'd be amazing. So
That
I
would
could sit here and you are such a great, I know that everything is not a story that you're telling, but you're a great storyteller. And so I love the way that you are sharing this with us. You have to come back, Shawn. You have to come back
I would
for
love
sure.
to come
And
back. I'd love to come back. Absolutely. I mean, please
yeah,
just,
that'd
when
be
you'd like to have me back, just let me know.
I will absolutely. And for our listeners, I will make sure that I put all of Shawn's links in there that you'll go. I thought I had watched quite a bit of your stuff, but I feel like I'm missing some of I'm going to go back and watch some of your stuff on the YouTube. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for coming on. And Shawn, thank you so much for showing up with your grounded wisdom, your beautiful open heart honesty and the courage to speak the unseen. I feel like this conversation was so much more than an interview. I really feel like it was a teaching and a transmission, and such a huge reminder to our listeners that you're never walking alone, like never walking alone. And for those of it that you're listening, if this episode stirs something in you, whether it's your own desire to connect to spirit or reclaim your own indigenous or ancestral roots, make that, connection, which is so important. Simply trust the messages, that you've been receiving and let this be your sign to follow that pull. And I will make sure so you can learn more about Shawn's powerful work, his live events, and his Spirit Talker tribe at shawn-leonard.com. And then you can follow him on Instagram as well. And I'll have all those links in there as well. So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for everybody for tuning in and listening.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to seeing you and your audience again someday in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Shawn. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Collective SOULversations podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we hope that you found our chat both inspiring and thought-provoking. Your support means everything to us, and we're excited to keep this journey going with you. So make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a review and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps us grow and connect with more wonderful listeners like you. Until next time, stay curious and keep those SOULversations flowing.